Okay. Sorry, Marcel. I will quickly take over for just a bit.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you everyone for joining. This is the first tech meeting which we are actually making public. So also for everyone joining online, I hope you can see us well and hear me well. We'll be switching through different mics and cameras. Let's see how it goes. So this tech meeting will be by Marcel, and if you will, which will be about microservices, microservice architecture, but for the front end, micro frontends. So if you have any questions, feel free to use Slido. Here you have a QR code. I will also share the link in the chat, so you can post your questions. 1 second. And then we can start. So here you can write your questions. In the end, we will go over them. And yeah, Marcel, feel free to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Hi, guys. My name is Marcel Zúbrik. I'm front-end developer in the Riwers company, and I would like to tell you a bit about Micro Frontends architecture for advanced frontend.
You have to also resume the presentation, sorry.
What?
Marcel, you have to resume the presentation because I took over share. In Google Meets.
Is it visible now?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Okay, let's start again. So as I already said, I'm Marcel Zúbrik. I'm front developer in Riwers, and this is about Micro Frontends. Micro Frontends is an interesting front-end architecture, and this is my way of introducing it to others. In this presentation, I would like to talk about what it is, what are micro frontends, where did we get them from, why should we bother with them, and how to create some micro frontends. Also, I have some examples from the real world. So we should have also something real. And please beware that this presentation contains technical parts that can be boring. Therefore, I decided to use cat GIFs to wake you up when you're too bored. Okay, imagine you have a huge front-end app with multiple big and complex modules. Some of them are shared, and you need to break them into more manageable parts. How would you do that? And that's when micro frontends come to help. You actually have multiple front-end apps that are working like one, but they run independently. Later we will show what does it mean, because there are many ways to make them run independently. And also there is one wrapping host that is something like showing them or wrapping them to others, like wrapping menu, player, and whatever. Every app is an independent feature, but they can also share some resources, libraries. Also depends on what approach you decide to use. And to imagine it better, I want to show you an example on some page everybody knows, but Netflix was already used in other presentations and I didn't know what to use, so I decided to use YouTube. Everybody knows YouTube. I actually don't know how YouTube works, but I know that probably everybody already used YouTube Player. And when you embed your video in your site, you actually are using a Google application that is independent itself. And if you have parts of page independent, you can work with them in a way that it's much more flexible. Imagine having that application as a huge monolith. That will be really hard to handle. But if you are having them like separate apps that work and can be used independently, you can, for example, also use commands in the admin section. You use the same front end that calls the same backend, and you just added their property that enable to manage them. Same for the list of recommended videos. You may want to display it in other way, but it's actually the same app. And same is for search and menu, which are actually on the whole website. So this is how it may look in the real world. Okay, that's interesting, but how did we get here? It's just next step in what we already had before, and we were getting more and more complex applications. Do you remember when we were creating everything in one project, like getting data, business logic, HTML, form validation, design in all in one code, the original monolith? It was really a terrible experience. And then we decided to split it into front and back end, because front end is doing something different. It shows the user, it makes him to see only what he needs to see and to work with application. And the backend is doing work with data and business logic under the cover. But then we figured out that the backend application is not just same for all. We have products, for example, we have products which are being displayed on almost every page, but we have order which is being displayed only to users that ordered something. And so products may need to be called much more often, may need to be independent of the other things. And therefore, we created microservices. We we split the application vertically, so we can handle them separately. And the same thing we are doing for front ends, because if you have really huge application, and on front end you have different areas which are now being used in different ways, you may want to split it also vertically. So you can then create something like a product app that has front end and back end and can be handled by people that are working mainly on products. So front end applications became also more and more complex, and we needed a way to handle that. Also, enterprise companies have many independent products, and they need to have them in one place under one logo, and that also created need for something that can handle that. And also, we need to share functionalities across different applications. All these problems led us to Micro Frontends. So let's move to the most important questions. Micro Frontends were born from solutions for the big project problems, and the benefits they bring are related to many of them, but not only. For example, we have autonomous development, which means teams are focused on some task. They are creating they're working on application related to video player or to product, and that improves the product itself, because it's people, when they are focused only on one thing, they really make better results. There is also fault isolation. When one front-end application falls, it doesn't mean that all the other falls. They are being deployed separately. And that brings us to fostering continuous deployments. Like, feature updates can be released independently. If we bring a new feature to search, we don't have to deploy other parts of applications. And that's also another thing is reusability. Once we develop a great component, then we just share it and can use it elsewhere, like the video player we mentioned before. And that brings us to another one, which is technology freedom. If you have apps independent, then some of them can be updated. They can be updated separately. You can even mix different frameworks, which can bring some problems with optimization. But it also depends on what approach you decide to use. But if you have some old applications and you need to bring them to new code, then you just change them step by step, and you don't have to work on the whole project. Of course, there are also disadvantages. Micro-frontends are not perfect godlike feature. You just add the project and it's done. It's working. They have some cons that need to be considered before you decide to use them. And the first and most biggest disadvantage is the complexity. It's like when you have one application, having multiple applications requires much more people, much more time and money. You also need to keep track of those apps, their dependencies, and it's challenging even with some tools that help you to do it. You also require to coordinate teams so they know about what they are doing and have a big picture. So that's why it's mostly the domain of the enterprise world. And also, there is no standard for micro frontends. There are some well-used approaches to follow and tools to use, but you need to be prepared that you need to figure out how to make it work. You know the pros and cons, but how to know when is the right time? The time should be when your project is at least medium or large. As I mentioned, you may need to have multiple teams, and you can benefit from what it brings, the deployment, also the scalability when you need more people on that project, and also faster rollouts because you're not depending on the other apps. Also, if productivity is priority, then you may be interested in this because people are focused on their feature, and then they bring better solutions and don't need to work on things that are not related to their topic. Also, it can be organized in a really nice way if you need some feature, you talk with specific team, you go deeper, and so on. When should you not use the micro frontends? It's basically for small projects. If you're like two guys having hobby project, then maybe this is too complex to just bring all those related rules and tools to make it work. Also, if in your team there is communication not very high level, then it may be a showstopper for some of the issues you meet on the way. So don't feel bad if you're undecided. Micro frontends is a term that covers many approaches, tools, techniques that can inspire you to use something from that in your project, or you can go step by step, just prepare that if you think that your project will grow in the future. If you found those not points true, then you should really consider that so you don't just kill the project. Okay, so now it's getting technical, so managers can start to play with their phones because we are getting deeper. So you decided to use micro frontends. You were feeling happy about making decision. Now you need to decide the right approach. What does it mean? Different approaches in micro frontends are about the right balance between the setup maintenance, which means you don't have to work so much on setting it up, and on between the separation, like the applications are totally separated on the other side. There's a nice slider with the most used approaches, how to do micro frontends, and on this side, it's really more easy to set them up. On this side, there are totally different applications running independently. So let's talk about those approaches. You can create your apps as individual packages for NPM, and that makes it actually very simple to set up. But you can have some issues with libraries, versions, and dependencies across the apps. Another approach is module federation, which is a feature of Webpack and RSpec bundlers. And there are features like you can share libs between the applications. You can load them and configure them in the runtime. It has SSR support, but the con is it's really complex, or it can be complex to set them up in at the start. It can be helped with tools like Nix. We will tell about this tool later. Another approach is web components, and that means that every app is like an isolated component. Maybe some of you already used web components. It's easy if you already create it, easy to use. You just create a tag, import the JS file, and it's there. The down of this approach can be bigger files because they include all the libraries. It can be useful for components which you want to use across the application. For example, a table, which you can add all the features in one and then just set it up with some properties. And also you can bundle the whole apps and use them as a tag. They can be then very different. Another approach is iframes, which is something that used to be done in the past. It's simple to work with iframes because you just place their applications. but then you need to solve some security and data sharing issues. And the last one I'm mentioning here is routing apps. It's something that every app is running on a separate, as a separate app on the main, and you're basically just switching between them in browser. I would like to talk more about two of these approaches. The first one is module federation, and second one is web components. In module federation, you break the app in self-contained modules to make sharing functionality more efficient and use them where you need. And that's one of the points, modularization, because it makes chunks and you can decide, or the Webpack can decide if they can be reused and bundle them and load them later in the application. So basically at the beginning, you just load some modules, and when you need them, when you need something more, it's just being loaded, already packed and prepared. Another great feature of module federation is you can share code across them. So you can have one library for like design things, components you want to use, buttons and so on, and use it, it loads once, and you can use it across the application. Actually, with module federation, you can have one package JSON. And NX, that is a tool that probably many of you know for many repos, and using module federation with it enables you to make it more easy to manage dependencies and bring some rules into that, because setting it up without it can be, you can get easily lost in that. So I don't want to show some project very deeply. I just want to share the codes. I think we will able to share them also when we share the video and mention it later. So let's see. This repository shows how module federation with NX can work. There is a very nice article from NX itself about it, and I want to show you example of that. There are two applications running. One is dashboard and second one is login. And as you can see, every application is running on its own address. And because I'm not authorized, I'm being redirected to login. But once I logged in, I have the original application with information that was shared also across the modules of that application. In code, it looks like it's one project. The packages are being shared across them. And you can create your own apps here. You can have libraries related to them. Here is a library that was something like authentication, but it's very simple.
Could you, Marcel, could you zoom in, please, a little bit so we can see it better?
Oh, how do I zoom that?
No, like Command plus. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we defined some information, or what can be loaded at what from what resource in module federation configs. that description, that article about it is going more deep. And it explains why those steps have been done. At first, they create something like static module federation, which means the applications are defined once and then they are not changing. But later they go to dynamic module federation, which uses this configuration and it can be loaded dynamically, which actually enables you to add and remove the apps dynamically too. It's a really great example. We used it in one project I will mention later. Okay. Let's move back to the presentation. So that was module federation. Da, 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 da. And the next approach is web components. Maybe you already use them and you even don't know. Web components is just a JavaScript file, maybe some other files, and it creates independent apps or packs, and you just create a tag, import a JavaScript file, and it magically works. So when you are working with creating micro-frontends, the web components, first you have to create the web component itself. That actually means bundling the application in a web component and creating the tag for it. Then you just place it in your host application or HTML file. Web components use the web platform API, and it's supported. It's here for a few years. It's nothing new. It's supported by all modern browsers and also supported by modern frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue.js and others. Another great feature is that it's reusable. Once you define the component, you can use on many places. So if you have a really cool button, then you can define it all around the website, so everybody is tired of it. And also it's encapsulated. You can include the whole app with HTML, CSS in one JS file. And even if you want, you can decide that it's possible to style that component from outside, because it's basically a tag in HTML. So you can use host application to change the styling of it. Also, for programmers who want to play, I created a repository where I'm showing how such an application can, or a solution can work and look like. We have it like here. This is the basic home screen that is in the host application, but we want to load some other application into it. The host is not changing, and we are just adding a tag which contains the application we wanted. This one is created in Angular, this one is created in Vue.js, but it's basically just switching between the tags. And every app is working alone. It has its own package JSON, and you compile it in a way, you have to tell the framework you want to compile it as a web component. So in the distribution directory, you have JS files, and CSS files you need to copy. And then in host file, host application, you just place them somewhere. I placed it in public, so it's easy to read. And then it's just switching between them. I don't remember where it was. But what is it doing? You can find it in a repository and try it on your machine. There are no dependencies like external ones. You just do npm install. There's also some readme about it. Okay. So you created your perfect solution and figure out that your apps need to share some data and send them to each other. And maybe you asked how to do that. Well, if you don't use iframes or you don't run that as totally separated apps, you can share more than just cookies. There are multiple ways. First, you can send data using post message, which means serialize it and post message, and whatever is listening to it can perform an action, even inside web components. And also you can have custom events. As you have click, you can create a custom event for almost anything, similar to post message. And also, of course, you can use shared session and local storage because it's running as a one app on one domain, and you can share information that are stored here as you would in a common front-end application. So we talked a lot about micro-frontends, but can it really be used in real world? And this part can be interesting for managers. In the end, we used the Module Federation and NX in Güdel's project, which is something called modulith. It's like a monolith, but it contains modules with like separated apps. We use Module Federation with NX for that because it contains 6 applications, and we wanted to keep it like when one of them falls, the others are not affected. Some of them are still in old code, and some of them are written in the new Module Federation, and continuously they want to write all of them into the Module Federation. And also we enabled in the NX something like relations, which help us to not use code in parts which should not be there. For example, you have multiple libraries and multiple apps, and the libraries are shared across the apps, and you want to define some rules. NX enables you to do this in TypeScript configuration, ESLint configuration, so you can see directly in the editor that these things should not be imported here because it may break some security or other things. And another project I was working on was CreditPlus EdProc. It was created using web components. Basically, it was a set of applications. One was like a set of forms and like customer management for leasing company. Another one was for management of files, scanned invoices, and so on. And these two were independent applications developed by totally different teams and on different platforms and tech stack. And they wanted to have it as a one or something as they can offer to customers under one logo. So we decided to bundle them as independent apps as a web component, and the main application, the host, was basically switching between them. Of course, they were much bigger than like some button. There were big apps with modules, but it's possible to just pack them into web component and use them like that, which enabled the company something that they could sell to different customers, some combination they needed or wanted. We could also bundle them different versions and mix that according to their needs. So we are near the end. This was just an introduction. We barely scratched the surface, but there's still more to discover and learn. I want to share some starting point links to sources of information from guys which are much smarter in this field, and I like to visit them when I don't understand something. Okay, and this is the end. Thank you for your attention.
Very nice, Marcel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a great presentation. And we have a lot of questions. Thank you, everyone, for adding them. Feel free to use these few moments to also like which ones you want to be answered. And let's start with the most upvoted one. So, how complex is to integrate micro frontends using different frameworks like Angular, React, or just older technologies? Like you already mentioned this a little bit, but maybe you want to add some few words to that?
Yeah, the most easy way or the most easy is to create web components in Angular, because it's already prepared for that and you have no issues with communication between components and so on. But also, if you work in Vue and other frameworks, when you read about how to implement it, you should do it at the beginning, because it's painful to do it later.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. So let's. Oh, wait, I forgot that my camera. 1 second. Okay. Hopefully. Okay. So another question is from Oleg. Oh, hi, Oleg. Nice to see you here. So how do you handle integration testing across microservices, especially when different teams are responsible for different parts of frontend?
Yes, depends on approach. If you have it like web components, then you have independent applications and you just test it that way. Interesting, it starts to be in the module federation, and there really helps the NX tool, because you just run one command and all the unit tests and end-to-end tests can be run. So that's something that helps in those approaches. In other approaches, it's up to you what you found out. There are some ways to do it that guys recommend, but I don't know. I have no deeper knowledge about how testing works in, for example, iframes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Misho. In a microservice backend architecture, the classic problem is data compatibility or consistency. Are there any analogical problems in micro-frontend architecture?
You probably mean communication between microservices, and the front-end applications in the examples I was working on don't communicate with each other so much. So we didn't use something special. And from what I read, you have to define your own way to communicate. For example, if you are using events, then you just define some protocol that works for you and what kind of message and who should get it. Maybe there are tools for that, but I didn't work on a project that will use it in this scale. So that's something to discover if you have project like that.
Thank you. So another is from Anton. Hi, Anton. Long time no see. I thought that you will come in person, actually. Do you recommend to use monorepos for micro-frontend projects?
It works well for the Güdel and helped a lot in many things. So if you have tool like NX, then yes. We were able to make it work in pretty fast, and it really helped to like create components, to test, to check if everything works together. For example, only the running all the applications can be difficult if you don't use any tools and don't use a monorepo. So I would recommend it. It's really much easier with that.
Then another question from Misho. In addition to modules, are there frameworks, high-level tools to integrate multiple front-end technologies like React, Vue, Angular?
I don't actually don't know what. I don't know if I can answer this.
Okay, then let's go to another one. Can you influence the order in which micro-frontends are loaded? How do you prioritize this?
You can define it, depends on approach. If you have web components, then you just define when the tag should be loaded into the DOM. And in the module federation, it's also similar to that, because the Webpack is just bundling it, and there are static files. You decide what feature are going to use. There is nothing like you need something to load before. In the module federation, it's decided by Webpack and the way how you build that application in their system. So there is no need to define how they are being loaded, as far as I know.
For example, if, I don't know, one of the micro frontends takes longer, you might like prioritize or might want to prioritize like, okay, so this is more important and this is less important, right? So in those cases, I could imagine that it could
you can create something like some event when it's being loaded, so it lets the parent host application know that it's ready to be displayed, but it can really depend from project to project. I don't really know where it will be. Like, we have a video player, and it loaded, but still doesn't have loaded the content, so it displays the weight circle. But if there is something for the libraries itself, we were using just something that was showing wheel or nothing. And when it was loaded, then we just displayed it. We had an event, and then the host application know that you can display it.
Okay, perfect. So the next question is where and how Compose Micro Frontend are built using different front-end libraries. Do you recommend iframes?
I don't recommend iframes.
Nobody
I
likes
worked on I was maintaining a project that was built on iframes, and only put it to the Docker was like maybe it was because how it was configured and designed, but it was really hard to work with that. You had to The communication had to be made by some backend, and I don't like that approach. I think you just get much more troubles, because if you have it as a one front-end application, then things are much more easy with authentication, with sharing data across the apps, and so on. That's why I decided to talk more about web components and module federation. The others are really creepy.
Okay, then the next question, did you experience any issues with NPM libraries in the context of VMF? I know, for example, that you cannot render multiple instances of CK editor.
Oh, maybe it's because it creates some global variable that is being used from the others. I don't know. Is the editor web component? I don't know if it's being used like that. I cannot answer this question. Sorry.
Okay, and maybe somebody can add who was asking the question about their experience about the specific CK editor, or no? Okay, so I guess the person left. So then, NX works mostly only for monorepos. This is the conclusion from your side, or?
The NX itself is describing itself like a monorepo tool. So yeah, but I can imagine that you have a small project and you start to develop in NX, or use the NX inside it. And monorepo we used in some projects was backend together with frontend, which also big companies use. And the NX was used for only a part, but you can use it for example, if you have backend and frontend in the same tech stack, like in JavaScript, then it can be really useful because you share the libraries even across the frontend and backend. So that can be interesting. What disadvantages do micro frontend have?
Yes, that's the next question. What disadvantages do you see?
They are complicated. That's why it's better to have somebody who can help you, or that you are not alone with that. That's the biggest disadvantage from my point of view. They can become very complex, and you need like rules how to do it to not get lost in it.
Okay. Then Misho is asking, data consistency compatibility in backend is similar to state management in frontend. How well global state can be handled? No
In
event.
module federation, I think there is some tool for state management. I'm not sure, but you can keep some state in a host application. Of course, you can have some states in the shared things like local session and local storage. And of course, there is always a cookie, which because it's one page, then like things like authentication verifications are being handled by a cookie. And if you need to share it dynamically, you probably need to go deeper into defining how you want and what you want to share with what kind of applications, then decide if it's better to use some events or some of the storages in browser are good for you.
Then the next question we have is where and how compose micro frontends layout, style, and user preferences like the dark mode, large fonts. I guess the question is meant like how do you do these configurations which then influence multiple components?
Yeah, you do them in the host application, and you can also, for example, in project we used even submodules, Git submodules. So we have one library for the whole company, and even one project uses Micro Frontends and the other one does not. It's shared in a repository that is being part of other repository as a module. But in the Micro Frontend, I think it's easy. You in modules, module federation, that's the most nicest way, because you just have a library called shared, and there you put things you want to be shared across the applications, and then it's being loaded as one JS file when the application starts, or even when that part is needed. In web components, that can be more difficult because they are very independent, but also you can use in host application styles that just go deep into the web component and change the styling of it.
Okay, cool. Then I had to already close the question, so we will not add more, but we have 5 minutes to answer the last ones. Which micro frontend approach do you, Marcel, prefer?
Depends, but module federation and web components are my favorites.
Okay, so you don't have a favorite child.
Oh, no.
Okay, so how does the React router work with Webpack module federation? Is it possible to use nested routers? I don't know if you
Yes,
have
actually,
experience.
I don't know about the React because the projects I worked with were in Angular, but the routers in Angular are also split it into the application. So, like, I have one host application that is asking for this route, and this route is defined in module federation configure, and then it loads the application you need. And inside that application is other router, which defines what components to load when it gets it. So yes, it works.
Okay, great. Then is it possible to kill off specific micro frontend in case it's slowing down the application or has a bad performance or a leak?
Sure. If you have web components, you just don't allow to load that component, or you tell a developer to remove that tag from the inspector.
And is it
And
possible to do it automatically, like that? Is there a library which can monitor like how much or which component is maybe slowing down the web app, so you can do it dynamically as the app works? Or
I don't know. That will be probably part of end-to-end testing, and that's interesting question. It will be nice to figure out if there is some tool for that. But it should not be hard to quit it, because as they are independent, then you just tell browser to not use it. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know more about it, but try to look for that. It's an interesting question.
maybe there's a gap in the market, right?
Yeah, opportunity.
We don't have enough side projects. Uh, so how would you describe difference between web components and React components?
As I know very little about React components, I will describe the web components first. And it's an API of browser. So basically, there are even independent tools which are not frameworks, which bundle your JavaScript into web component. And that's probably the biggest difference between that. Web component is framework independent, and a React component is part of React ecosystem.
React dependent.
Yeah.
Okay. So Misha is asking, what I understand is that NX can combine different technologies in various modules, so like Vue, React, Angular, etc. Can it handle various technologies in a single JS file?
I don't think so.
Right? I mean,
Yeah. Every app should be different. Can be different framework, but using different frameworks is mostly not very efficient. It can be done, but you may want to stick with one.
preferably.
Yeah,
But this
if you need to later switch to something else, it's
yeah,
great because you switch app by app.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then it's great to have this option. But if you're building it from ground, you don't want that.
Yeah, of course. Like yeah, one team is Angular, one team is React, and let's see who will do better, and then
Yeah, and they are doing the same app.
Hunger Games. Uh, so then, two last questions. I think we can do them if you have still some energy, Marcel.
Yeah.
If I decide to do it for my project, I guess they mean Micro Frontends. Is there some guide tutorial you have, some personal experience with, which will guide me through the process, apart from probably ChatGPT?
Yeah. Mm, there are many guides, and as you've seen, even the approaches are different. So maybe it's good to ask about the specific project, and then just write me and I can answer you. Okay, I think for this project this approach will be better, and we can find some guide or something that will help you to get in.
Yes, I also like I'm not focused on the front end. I'm more of a backend guy, but I would say that maybe choosing some good framework like NX has like they have documentation which you can probably
Yeah.
follow. That would be the easiest probably than doing some stuff all by yourself.
Yes, if you decide for module federation, then I think that NX is really good. There are cool guys that don't use it anymore, but they probably started with something or some help. And this kind of help it's cool to have that tool now. We're living in a wonderful age.
Yes, where there's a new tool every morning. So the last question, can we quantify somehow how more complex is using micro frontends in comparison to normal approach?
Yes, so imagine you have a big app with multiple modules, and you want to create separate application from every module. In web components, you split that project and get rid of the other modules. And in the module federation approach, then you need to split it and refactor it a bit, but you need to set up the relations. So in normal applications with modules, you get to the point when it's too big, takes too long to compile, and dependencies are wild, and you want to split it. Then it's time to switch to micro frontends, probably. And then you decide which is better for you. Web components, if you want to pack something big into independent things that can be combined. And module federation, when you have something that has same resources or similar resources. So we get the advantage of Webpack picking those cherries and making packs in very efficient way.
Yeah, I think that it's still like everything. It's a tool, right? And we should use it in moderation or where it makes sense, right? We don't have to then use it for everything. That there is still some overhead. So I think it's cool to use it in projects, obviously, but still you don't need to every single thing be separate micro frontend.
Yes.
Oh, okay, then thank you very much, Marcel, for answering all our questions and for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's cool to see you. Also, some people from previous projects like Oleg, Anton. It's very nice to see you today. Yes, so right now we are continuing with the part in the office, and we will do these tech meetings every month already publicly. So be on lookout for another invite for the next tech meeting, and I hope you liked it.
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
Bye.